Hey there, Fletch from All Things Overlanding here, and today I'm going to be talking about my brand new LiFepo4 battery that I just picked up for a big battery box that you see back there. So this thing has so much capacity that I'm not even sure if I'll have to charge it up on most trips. So again, I'm going to kind of just show you it. As far as size goes, I'll put dimensions up on the screen. I'm going to give you all the info on the battery and kind of tell you my thoughts as I've used it over the last couple months and just give you an idea of it. If you are interested in this battery, it's really budget minded for how much capacity this thing has. I will put a link in the description down below, so if you want one, go down there, click through the link and pick up your own. But again, let's get into the Goldenmate 200 amp hour LiFepo4 battery. Alright guys, so this is not necessarily like a wiring video or anything like that. I will show you just how simple it is to hook up this battery. I'm going to kind of show you my setup. It's not the prettiest thing ever, but I used existing stuff that I had laying around like this Plano crate, and I also wanted to keep it sort of out of the cab because once you get into the cab, you've got a lot of, penetrations that you have to make through the cab. There's just a bunch of problems that come with that. So most of my electronics that I use this extra house battery for are going to be in the rear, like my rooftop tent will be powered off of this. All my auxiliary lighting back here will be powered off of this. I'll use it to charge things up, that kind of thing. So I figured it was just as easy to put this back here. Now I am working on a drawer system that's going to go in front of this box, and then there's going to be a cover over the whole thing. So this will basically be sort of hidden back here, and it'll be secure. So I don't have to worry about anybody messing with it or taking it. But again, I just put everything in this box. Now, one thing that I will say, the only downside of this battery going with a 200 amp hour is it is massive. And let me show you what I mean. So this is my Red Arc stuff on top here. We've just got a bunch of stuff wired, ready to be pre-installed. And then we put some foam around it to keep everything sort of held in place. But you can see here are the posts for the battery. Now it comes with these bolts and everything. So again, it's as simple as literally hooking everything up to positive and negative on the battery to run auxiliary stuff off of it. And then you can see the body of the battery going back here. So this is a 104 quart Plano crate. So it's a good sized Plano crate. And you can see the battery basically goes from there until right about there. So it takes up the majority of this box. Then we put my BC-DC charger on top of the battery, and then my TVMS from Red Arc is down here on the side so that we have access to all the plugs and everything, all the cords. And then the Red Arc stuff can be controlled remotely via a panel that's inside the truck or via my phone, which is pretty cool. So again, the plan with this is just to sort of keep it back here in the back, cover it up, and then just have it be accessible all the time. All right, so I did just kind of want to walk you guys through, also show you this product on Amazon. That'll be the easiest, quickest way to kind of get you all the information about this thing. As you can see, the 200 amp hour it's a big unit. It's a large battery. So as you saw in my box in the back of my truck, it takes up a lot of that room. So unless you really need this huge capacity for power, you could also just go with their 100 amp hour, which is significantly smaller. But so let's start with the 200 amp hour, and then I'll touch a tiny bit on the 100 amp hour as well, just so you've got all the info. So the 200 amp hour is about 9.4 inches wide, 20.6 inches long, and about 8.6 inches tall. It does weigh about 50 pounds also, so if weight is a consideration, then that is something to think about as well. But here are some of the benefits of a LiFepo4 battery versus like a traditional AGM battery, and kind of this is why, especially for my house battery, I've been going with LiFepo4. One thing to keep in mind though, before I dive into this, is make sure your controller is smart enough to manage the difference between the two. There are some controllers where you have to have an AGM starter battery and an AGM house battery because it can only handle one type of battery at a time. With my Red Arc, it can handle the difference between the two, and it can have a starter battery that's, lead acid or AGM, and then it can have a LiFepo4 house battery, and it does just fine. But just before you buy this, make sure that your controller can, go between different types of batteries, be it a LiFepo4 or an AGM or a traditional lead acid. But the thing that's so cool about LiFepo4 is the resiliency, right, of the battery, and as well as the discharge. So you get 2,000 to 5,000 cycles out of a LiFepo4 battery, where you only get a few hundred out of an AGM battery. So that's pretty cool, especially when you're constantly discharging and then recharging the battery. That's pretty important. Then the same is the depth of charge, right? So with a LiFepo4 battery, you can take it down to about 90-95% pretty easily with no worries of damaging the battery. Whereas with like an AGM battery, it's more like 50-60% of the battery. So if you had two 100 amp hour, or in this case, 200 amp hour batteries, you could use up about 180 amp hours of that battery before you start to get into the danger zone where you could potentially damage the battery. Whereas on a 200 amp hour AGM battery, you can only use about half of it, a little less than half of the capacity. So you're getting almost double the usable power in a LiFepo4 battery over an AGM battery. Now this battery does have BMS protection, so it won't let you overcharge it. It won't let you over discharge it. It will protect itself. So that's kind of nice. And then it does have high and low temperature protection. So again, it's not gonna let you, or it's gonna do its best to keep you from damaging the battery regardless of the conditions. Now let's switch over to the 100 amp hour battery and take a look at that. So again, this one may be a really great option for most of you. I've had a 100 amp hour LiFepo4 battery for the last year and a half or two, and it's been fantastic. And the battery is still just like new. I actually sold it to a buddy of mine recently, and now he's using it in his trailer. So these things are great. They're much, much smaller, right? So let's look at dimensions on the 100 amp hour. So it's 6.8 inches deep, or, you know, from front to back, 12.9 inches long, and only 8.3 inches tall. So again, much smaller than the 200 amp hour battery. You still have plenty of usable capacity. You could use, 90, 95 amp hours out of this 100 amp hour battery pretty easily without having to worry about anything. And it weighs about 25 pounds. So it's about half the weight of the 200 amp hour. So again, it just kind of depends on your uses and how much power you think you need. But in most cases, honestly, guys, I would probably say just go with the 100 amp hour. But these Goldenmates are really, really nice. But if you have any questions, post up in the comments down below and I'm happy to answer them. Again, though, the 200 amp hour capacity is really nice if you have like an overlanding trailer or something like that and you needed a ton of capacity or didn't want to mess too much with having to charge it up a lot, then something like that may be a good option. And at about 600 bucks, it's actually very reasonable with free shipping on Amazon. So pretty reasonable for that. Or again, I will put a link in the description to both the 200 amp hour and the 100 amp hour. For most people that are looking for a dual battery setup in overlanding, the 100 amp hour would be fine. I mean, I ran mine in the winter running a diesel heater all night long for multiple nights, maybe 3 nights in a row, and running auxiliary lights under my rooftop tent for about 6 to 7 hours every night for 2 or 3 nights. And by the end of that trip, I think I was at like 70% on the 100 amp hour battery. So, I mean, I barely even got into it. Now, one downside to these, or just something to be aware of, is they are not heated. There are some of these, they generally cost significantly more, but they will have like a built-in temperature monitor, and they will use the battery power to heat the battery. These are not heated, so just FYI, if you're in cold climates, which I am, I'm in the Midwest, and it hasn't been a problem for me. That's just one thing to be aware of. The only sort of downside to that is you can put power out of it, but it won't charge. So like if your charger is smart enough, like my Red Arc is, it will say, hey, it's too cold, it's not safe to charge this thing. In those situations, what I've done in the past is then I will just run my auxiliary lights or whatever, things that are plugged into it to kind of heat it up, get the juices flowing, if you will. And then once it heats up, then it will start to take a charge. So again, I haven't really had any problems with that, but just something to be aware of. So that was a little bit more on the 200 amp hour Goldenmate LiFepo4 battery. This thing is awesome. The 100 amp hour is awesome. Pick the one that's right for your setup. Pick the one that's the right size for what you're trying to do. And I think you can't go wrong with these things. So I hope that was helpful for you. If it was, click that like button. If you're not already, click the subscribe button and the bell to be notified when new videos drop. I do a couple every week. So gear reviews, stuff like this, overlanding, general stuff, a lot of Nissan content. I have a brand new Nissan Frontier. So if you're into that, I'd love to have you. Just click that subscribe button. Also in the description down below will be links to all my social channels. So wherever you want to come hang out, I'd love to have you join the conversation. And then last but not least, there is a Patreon group link down there. So check that out if you are interested in the 24/7 Discord. That's kind of a fun thing. We all kind of chat, and once a month we have a call to kind of talk through our setups and gear and things like that. And then the last thing down there is the Newbie Overlanders group. Totally free to join on Facebook. If you're looking for a group that's not full of bullies, that would be a great place to check out. Come and hang out. Also in the description below are links to my website where I've got stickers and patches. So if you're an overlander and you know that stickers and patches are kind of our thing, funny overlanding themed stickers and patches. So if any of that sounds good to you, definitely check that out as well. But that'll do it for the Goldenmate 200 amp hour battery. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.